With everything that we're seeing happen in the country right now, it's easy to say that any sense of patriotism that the normal, sane-minded American has is really under fire, right? The level of introspection that a lot of us are having as we watch the consequences of policy play out on the streets, play out in our cities, as troops flood our city streets and our president declares them war zones. And if you're a veteran, like myself, you get very strong feelings about what you're seeing. And there's a lot of veterans who support it, and there's a lot of veterans who don't. And the common acceptable idea is that most veterans are actually behind this because they are a big conservative voting bloc for the most part, but not all. And I think that the percentage of veterans who actually are very frustrated and angry with what's happening in our cities and our country right now, I think that that number is growing. And I saw this video the other day, and I completely understand what this guy's saying. I wanted to do a video on it yesterday when it was still kind of fresh, but I want to talk about it. So let's have a look.
Out of everybody I despise the most, ICE at the top of the list right now. You guys are fucking traitors, man. I did 5 tours of duty. My first one was Operation Sea Signal in Cuba, Operation Joint Endeavor in Bosnia in 1996. Cuba was 95. I did Operation Joint Guard, which was Kosovo in 1999. I did Operation Iraqi Freedom in 2008 in Iraq. And my final tour was in Afghanistan, Operation Enduring Freedom in 2013. Freedom is a rare thing in the world. True freedom is.
What would be your message to current soldiers, ICE agents, and National Guard that are being ordered to do illegal, non-constitutional things on a daily basis?
Don't participate.
Number one, I want to say that freedom isn't a rare thing in the world. We have this idea that America is the land of the free, but it certainly has been for many populations that have lived in America for a very long time. And I know he goes on to talk about the racism that he experienced. I know that there's a lot of groups out there that have experienced that and do experience that to this day, especially now when the mask is off for a lot of people and all that kind of anger and vitriol is just out there in the world for us to see and experience. And I would say that, yeah, right now, it would be incredibly difficult for me to serve in the military. You know, to go into the city streets and to oppress people, right? To check random people's papers, to put people in check who are just living their lives. That's not what you sign up for when you join the military. You know, a lot of people think that everyone who goes in the military are just some brutes, but they're not. Some of the most educated, some of the most complex individuals I've ever met, I served alongside in the Marines. And Marines are kind of known for being stupid. There's a lot of smart people out there. And there's a lot of smart people in the military. And what we're experiencing right now in our country is unjust measures being put upon a population that doesn't agree with what's happening. That's why all this is happening in democratic cities, right? In sanctuary cities, because it's a show of force. And it's something preempts something very darker that's coming down the road. And that's why some of the best advice that can be given to soldiers, to police officers, you know, even ICE agents, is, you don't have to participate, right? If you're given an unlawful order, you don't have to follow that order. If you follow an unlawful order, you will be held accountable. And this is a truth.
Right, weaponize incompetence. You walk out here, you look good, you be a prop for the government, help people with their luggage, but absolutely do not raise your weapon. As a citizen, don't participate in anything you know is illegal. Somebody with a fucking conscience got to still be here to hold the line. And I understand that it's terrible for you. It's terrible to see people, it's terrible to see democracy burn around you, but you really are a last line of defense. And for you kidnappers known as ICE agents, understand this. You will never be fucking forgiven for your crimes, ever.
I actually agree with this. I actually think that this brings up a very important point. With everything that's going on in the country right now, with ICE, with National Guard, all these people flooding the cities, you know, all the horrendous videos that we see and clips we see from TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, X, whatever, right? Of families being ripped apart, of people being beaten, of journalists being beaten and held and sprayed with mace, you know, snipers sitting on top of buildings firing rubber bullets down at people who are just peacefully protesting, not even questionable that what they're doing is peaceful, just sitting there with signs. There's going to come a time after this escalates to whatever it escalates to, or we sit back and relax and we try to go back to our lives if we have our lives to go back to at that point. And it does remind me of the movie Inglourious Basterds, fantastic movie. When Brad Pitt's character says to the Nazi, I imagine when you get to Nantucket, you're going to take off that little uniform, and I'm not okay with that. That's going to be a reality here. If you're from any of these communities that you're participating in this kind of bullshit in, you think that that's not going to come back on you at some point? That's not a threat. This is just a reality. You think that there's not going to be any kind of vengeance that's sought in the next decades to come? Things are escalating. Things are escalating and people are being drawn to sides in a more extreme way than I've ever seen them. And revenge has a very long memory. And when you talk about blood in soil, you inspire blood feuds that go beyond generations. So I imagine what we will see if you're an ICE agent and you live in a place that isn't deep red. You will have to hide those years of service that you did for your country. You'll have to hide that because in the future, the actions that are happening now and what is to come will be seen as villainous, will be seen as evil, even more so than it is now. And those people will not be safe because tyrants aren't forgiven. And those who do the footwork of tyrants are never forgiven. There's always a call for accountability to be had. Always. Full stop. And there will always be people seeking that kind of retribution. But we don't talk about that. But that's a reality. You know how many Germans were hunted down after World War II? You know how many fascists in Italy were hunted down after World War II? And even if you're not active participating, if you tacitly agree in support with whatever means you have these actions, collaborators are often seen as just as equally guilty as those who commit those actions. This is just history, right? And we are in a historical moment right now that is unfolding in front of us. And anyone who plays an actor in that will eventually have those consequences meet them in one way or another.
The soldiers, I can understand. They took an oath. They're duty bound to be there. They can't just quit. You could fucking reclass tomorrow and go work for FEMA or do something else. If you choose to put a mask on, if you choose to send people to concentration camps, if you choose to do that shit, you will be a mortal fucking enemy forever. I don't give a fuck if that felon anoints you in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. We're not gonna recognize that shit in these streets. Understand that shit.
The streets don't forgive. It is true. Listen, I'm a bit of a hood rat myself. Don't let the way that I speak fool you, right? Your boy has a past. And like I said, I was a Marine. I understand exactly what this guy's saying. I understand how he feels. I understand the intention behind his words. And I can tell you right now, if you're watching this, you're saying all veterans are behind Trump. They're all MAGA. No, they are not. No, certainly they are not, right? There's a lot of them, yes. But with the ones with brains, not so much.
So when you come out here, be ready for those one-way missions. All right, it's all fun and games until you deal with heavily armed veterans who are willing to match and seat your energy. Hell will flash trees over before I let anybody in my family be taken. Period. I don't give a fuck. ICE is an absolute scourge. You should hold your head in shame forever for the shit you're doing. You will never be forgiven for that shit. If you had a shred of dignity, you will reclass tomorrow. Sorry guys, that shit just pisses me off, man. Can't stand these fucking demons, man.
It's got to come from the heart.
Yeah, I cannot stand these guys, man. I watch, people out here running for their fucking life, man. That lady in Walmart running for like hours, man, hiding. And notice they're going after people who working.
Yeah.
Right? They sat here. Immigration itself is really about white supremacy. Mm-hmm. Let's just cut to the chase. Immigration has always served to keep America white. They tell you whatever bullshit lie from Operation Wetback. This goes back in history. So we know now you really see what America's about. They put white supremacy over everything, over the rule of law, over the separation of powers, and now they want to fund ICE at a higher rate than they funded the Marine Corps. That is the danger. That means they're going to use these people to stay in power. Right? They're using them right now. If you see, they desensitized the military already to kill people. Right? They're telling you it's okay to kill drug dealers and because they're moving drugs, so you can kill them now. Right? So they're going to continue to desensitize these people before they turn the guns on us. You need to be ready before that moment happens. When I tell you whether it takes 10 months or 10 years, we must be absolutely relentless in our fight against white supremacy.
I'd love to hear this kind of emotion. And I think that this is what's necessary. I think to bring this kind of level-headedness and energy and emotion and reasoned outrage to the conversation is incredibly important. And I applaud this man. And I think that, it wouldn't be too long ago that I probably would have disagreed with him. I still had the veil of indoctrination over my eyes from the military, being raised on base, the red, white, and blue, the Star-Spangled Banners in my eyes. I was that, absolutely. But that goes away, that should go away, when you see what we've been seeing. And I don't think I'm as out there as this gentleman is, and I respect him. I do. But I can say that I feel that passion, because I feel that anger, and I feel that sense that something's coming down. And a lot of people do. And this is a buildup. And this is going to get worse. And this will accelerate. And all people can do is be ready. Prepare yourself. Have food. Have shelter. Have water. Have the supplies. Arm yourselves if necessary. If you think that that's something that you can do, then you should do that just as an American in general. I don't want to see a conflict in our nation. I don't think anybody really does. Any sane person doesn't want a conflict in our country. We want these things to be resolved the political way, as it always has been. But it doesn't feel like anybody wants that. I just watched that grilling that some committee did of Pam Bondi. And she was so combative, and she wouldn't answer anything. It was just, if you were a Democrat, you were her enemy. She's not there to communicate with you, even though that's exactly why she is there. It's her job to justify any negative action that comes from this administration, right? She's not even a propagandist. She's just a cheerleader, really. Or at least that's how it comes across. But it's interesting to see, was it Jolly Red Ginger? I think that's his name. I don't know, one of the other veteran protesters, but there's more and more veterans that are coming, especially the older veterans who are a bit wiser. You had Pete Hegseth and Trump talk to all the brass from the military a few days ago. And I remember watching that. And if you've ever known higher ups in the military, they're not your chest thumping MAGA people. They're people who are highly educated, right? They're people who are very smart to get to those positions. You're not just there for 28 years and you're a general. That's not how it works. There's games to be played. There's a kind of knowledge that it's necessary for you to have, and you have to be an incredibly complex thinker. But the thing about Trump and the thing about Hegseth is they are not incredibly complex thinkers. And the more and more I watch this, and the more and more I watch what's happening in the streets, and the more I hear Trump talk about Portland and Chicago as active war zones where the cities are being burnt down, while at the same time you can watch live feeds of the city and it's just peaceful. Nothing's happening. And it just makes me think that he's being fed a line of lies and bullshit from one man, Miller, this guy. I can't stand this guy. But this is the guy who paints the picture of the world for Donald Trump. This is an incredibly dark man. This isn't a good man. And it should be pretty obvious. And if this is the guy who's painting the picture of what the world is and what your political opposition is, and the president's willing to believe that just off of what he's saying without any kind of validation at all, then yeah, things are going to get bad. Because President Trump at this point is just your typical Fox viewer. That's all he is. He's just going to eat the red meat and go with it, right? He doesn't fact check. It's not what happens. He's surrounded by sycophants, and this is bad. But hey, listen, the veterans are starting to turn on this. The veterans are not liking this. We're not liking what ICE is doing. We're not liking what's happening with the administration. We don't like how they're gutting the VA and social programs, that veterans and people from the working class and working poor desperately need. And things are going to come to a head at some point. And after that, when it's all said and done, well, there's going to come a reckoning where people's actions and people are going to be held accountable for those actions. And that's the world we have ahead of us. If you're still here at this point, like and subscribe. Think about becoming a member. Give a donation to the channel. Runs off you. We love you guys for the support that you give. Our channel's growing, We try not to do slop here. We try to actually talk about things that matter. And even though it doesn't draw the most views, I think it's important. I think it's important to me to get this out. Because I think it's important for people to understand that there's people who are like-minded out there, who see the world as they see it, and don't just listen to the madness that's coming from the ether. You know, stay sane and stay prepared, but stay positive and have barbecues and call family and enjoy life, because life is worth enjoying and people are worth enjoying. Have a good one.